going to be discussing different aspects of truth that are forsaken. In my personal opinion, being a conspiracy theorist for such a long time, it's almost like a fresh breath air over here, dealing with someone who can go beyond, what we expect to be true. Let me ask you a question. I was watching a documentary about Afghanistan and its culture. They say that the difference between their way of meeting for bread and making food is they say grace after a meal is satisfactory. Have you heard that before?
Well, as far as my background, I was raised by my white mother. So my information regarding Afghanistan has to do with my own personal research, and that's a much longer conversation. But I'm not well versed in the original traditions of Afghanistan. I know as much as most people. Due to my father's abuse, child abuse, and things of that nature, I do not have a close connection with that side of the family. As you might already know, some of their aspects of their culture do deal with male domination and other things that are not necessarily the most conscious, which is its own conversation. So, as a result of my involvement in what we would call the conspiracy theory movement, I am disowned by my father's side of the family. All of my research regarding that region and the culture and my passion to see those people free is my own independent research. And I'm still dabbling into that. I'm about to interview an Afghan scholar because I feel a calling to tell the true story of Afghanistan and why it experienced a downfall in the 1970s, which led to the Russian invasion in the 1980s, which they killed 3 million people, which American conspiracy theorists care nothing about and will never learn from Alex Jones or David Icke. And then this led to the Taliban taking control and massacring its own people, which gave the U.S. after 9/11 the excuse to invade. And then, of course, we have the situation now in which Joe Biden has allowed the Taliban to take back control, which has led many leftists that act like they're loving and full of light to demonize the Afghan people. And so, as far as Afghani traditions, all I can say is there are some beautiful traditions that do exist there with regards to food and culture. And as you're saying grace. And there are a lot of non radical Muslims that do live in Afghanistan. And a lot of the problems in Afghanistan do have to, in fact, have to deal with outside Arabs and Pakistanis and Iranians and others that have taken advantage of Afghanistan for many, many years. And so, yeah, I don't know all the full history, but I can say that the beautiful side of Afghanistan, most Americans and Westerners will never hear of.
That's true. And I'm glad that this is a good jumping point of the conversation because the whole picture of it is multi generational trauma. When we're dealing with geopolitical fixtures or any, so they usually don't hear the other side, the people side. And that's why I like to bring you into the show since we're going beyond the spectrum. So, where does this journey for you personally begin, Alex? I see a whole shelf of books behind you. What is this personal stake? I know you've already answered this question. It's obvious, but what is the personal stake in you piercing through this obfuscated narrative? What take? What's your point of view?
By the way, as far as books go, I've had a much larger book collection in Oregon, but because I have faced homelessness, I've had to move many times. So I really miss like the many, many prepper books that I was given by former guests that I've interviewed over the years. So this is like a new collection that I'm starting. And I would say that my journey starts after 9/11. I suffered from child abuse from both parents, although they were not married. So both my parents, to a certain degree, had a psychopathic nature to them. So by the time that 9/11 happened, I was in a treatment center, basically called the enemy on the day of 9/11 by people that were in my classes, my recovery classes, and that hurt a lot. But I always felt spiritual. I always felt different than the rest of society. So I got involved in 2004 in cable access TV, primarily to push back against the 9/11 deception, was very inspired by David Icke specifically, Alex Jones specifically, Clyde Lewis of Portland, Oregon, also the late author Michael Rupert, and a few others. And so these men were inspiring to me. And at that time, even though I'm half Afghani, I felt to a certain degree, unlike today, very welcomed into the alternative media. And so conspiracy oriented people were like my family, the family that I didn't have. So when I started out on cable access TV, which most of the listeners should know about, but some won't, that doesn't exist in a lot of places in America today, but exists in Portland, Oregon. And it's like cable TV where they feature marginalized voices that are not censored by AI. And I'm just going to grab my hot tea right now, which is boiling. But
Sounds great.
I'm actually quitting caffeine because I'm so high energy that caffeine does in major ways, although it makes me feel good, it messes with my sleep and gets me going a little too fast. Cable access TV was like the greatest thing that ever happened to me because for the first time in my life, I was able to speak to members of my community during the George Bush years and also the Obama years. And they treated me with respect. Even though I was a young man, I would get these compliments like, dude, where did you get your education from? And to be honest, I just went to community college. I didn't complete high school, although I got good grades in grade school, but I was moved around a lot by my parents. So I was not set up to succeed within the box of higher education. But